today we're focusing on sustainable finance megatrends, ESG and sustainable finances. And our first speaker is Katie MacDonald. Katie is Assistant Director of Nyserda's Tech to Market, where she helps support New York State's ambitious climate and energy goals through innovation and entrepreneurship. Good morning, Katie, and welcome to this year's summit.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks, Peter. I'm really excited to be here and thankful that Nyserda is supporting this great event, and also honored to be with some fellow excellent speakers. So yeah, wonderful. So I've been asked to say a few words about, how Nyserda is looking at trends in finance. And I'm happy to do that and excited to do that. I'm going to start with a little bit more about Nyserda and our mission. I felt that Peter set me up almost unfairly by inviting government to unleash the power of the private sector. So I will do my best to live up to that, or at least allude to some ways in which we think that may be possible. So first and foremost, many of you who know Nyserda know that we are a public benefit corporation founded in the 70s, really dedicated to advancing innovative energy solutions in ways that improve New York's economy and environment. We do so by fostering the transformation of markets, making sure that clean energy is accurately valued, as well as energy efficiency and climate resilience, and also encouraging competition and innovation that can deliver new solutions that we need. In July of 2019, we as an entity, as well as the entire state, we're lucky enough to be a part of a massive transition stewarded by Governor Cuomo to pass the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. This, for those of you that don't know, is New York's Green New Deal. And this act put us on a super ambitious nation-leading path to 100% carbon-free electricity by 2040, 85% reduction in greenhouse gases below 1990 levels by 2050, and also economy-wide carbon neutrality by 2050. So when a lot of people think about Nyserda, they think about electrifying buildings, modernizing the grid, investing in clean transport solutions, thinking about the deployment of large-scale renewables. And those are all things that we continue to ramp up considerably underneath this incredibly ambitious mandate. But it also means that we're looking at all new ways that we can intervene, to provide value in the market and to catalyze other actors to reach the ends that I described. One kind of important thing to note is, that this means truly paying attention to all sources of greenhouse gas across the economy. So whether that be industrial emissions or emissions from agriculture, Nyserda has a mandate to steward decarbonization across all those areas. So we are currently working with our 22-person Climate Action Council that has been appointed to develop a policy and solutions roadmap across every sector by 2023 to really figure out what our go-forward plan is in detail between now and 2050. In the meantime, we are not slowing down. I'm sure many of you saw the announcement of our offshore wind procurement for 2,500 megawatts of wind, as well as port construction, that just happened this summer. Many of you may have seen the $50 million, Empire Buildings Challenge announcement that we just put out at Climate Week. So there's quite a bit that's going on, and we are not slowing down by any means. So to just say a word about the innovation team, I'm part of a 40-person innovation team. I run the tech to market team. As Paul had said, our 40-person team is led by John Lochner, our VP of Innovation. And we have helped launch 472 products into the market since 2009. We've helped companies leverage over $1.1 billion of private sector funding. And we've really been integrally involved as an investor across all the sectors that I mentioned since that time. We've worked with over 330 firms, so companies that represent early stage innovation, solutions across the gamut. So that means that, we've been really lucky to learn quite a bit about, what needs to be done in the space and where our dollars can go to the highest public good. with this in mind, we have been thinking about not only how we can double down on some of our existing funding programs, like our Entrepreneur in Residence program, our accelerator programs, our incubator work, but also, as is the theme of this conference, what new focus areas we really want to have. And so, some of those are thinking about investment from the state side in some of the new areas I mentioned, like exploring natural carbon solutions and technologies that prove sequestration potential of working lands in the state, a place that Nyserda really has never been involved with to date. It also involves thinking about investing in, direct carbon management solutions like synthetic biology and material science that can help us really harness the power of captured carbon and put a real value on it so that innovators can develop new both sources of CO2 as well as pathways to ensure its value in the market. We're also talking and thinking a lot about finance and insurance. So, beyond our green bank, which just passed a really critical milestone of having invested in $1 billion this year, they passed the $1 billion mark, and will continue to invest aggressively in the solutions, some of the solutions I described. Beyond that outfit, we're really thinking about what kind of finance and insurance and other climate risk related financial interventions might Nyserda pursue in order to really make sure that we're accelerating that sector, given its enormous potential and importance to decarbonizing both New York and the world. We do have a track record of looking at novel business models, especially on the tech to market team. And in 2018 and 2019, we released a solicitation for $800 million to really look at new business models and insurance approaches and financial approaches to launching some of the climate tech that we know we need in the market faster. We will continue to be looking at that. A second area related to finance that we're thinking and looking at is really co-investment. We have a wonderful wealth of industrial and investment partners in the state that we actively convene, and we're really working with and speaking with them about how can we double down to make a pilot cheaper? How can we accelerate a first of a kind plant and make sure that it's eligible for subsequent financing, from market actors? How can we put our dollars to work in smarter ways so that their dollars can then jump in faster and help us get some of these important technologies to market. So we continue to work with our Nyserda Investor Advisory Board, which is a 9-person cohort of advisors from different walks of life within finance, everything from seed stage investing all the way to project finance, to really help us think about, what are the next ways that Nyserda is being called upon to intervene with new investment solutions. Another very interesting development, and I think really a great example of our commitment to looking at climate risk, is the partnership, or the MOU, that was announced during Climate Week between Nyserda and the Department of Financial Services. And this is a partnership that really commits our organizations to not only look at what kind of financing mechanisms can we deploy in order to enable and de-risk hard to accelerate climate technologies, but also, how can we ensure that, the financial sector in New York is fully aware of the implications of climate risk on their businesses and on the firms that they finance? And how can we work together to disseminate tools to them? So how can we work with banks? How can we work with other public sector actors to really look at quantifying climate risk, naming it, and ensuring that new approaches are developed to sort of hedge against potential negative side effects or losses due to that risk. So those are two huge pieces of our MOU with DFS, as well as a commitment to communicate between organizations at the public agency level about what sort of interventions may be needed in the future. So, besides all these factors, we're of course operating in an environment that's unprecedented, as Peter said. We just, I think last week, right, we've all found out that Nyserda is finally valued at more than ExxonMobil. And so, Nyserda will continue to look to put dollars to work in the smartest ways that we can to accelerate private markets and financial solutions. And we're more than excited to field any ideas that any of you attending the conference or others may have as we build out our roadmap to do this and reach our ambitious state climate targets. So I know I only had limited time. I'm gonna pause there, see how I did time wise, and invite any questions folks have.
Well, you're right on schedule, Katie, and I have a question for you to start the Q&A session. What types of collaborative efforts are Nyserda and New York State doing with other states? What kinds of programs are you sharing resources on or sharing knowledge and information about with other states?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Paul. So Nyserda was a founding member of the U.S. Climate Alliance, which is a group of 24 states that really came together in recognition that we need the Paris Climate Accord in order to limit emissions globally, and that states play a really critical role in ensuring that can happen based on the power that they have to control emissions and intervene to decarbonize within their jurisdictions. And so we founded that group with California and Washington. We remain very heavily involved with them, especially as we look at the Climate Action Council's path to define our own policy priorities. There's a really, really strong desire to complement the work of other states, to learn from them, and to make sure that they can learn from us. And so I'd say that's one way that we are really trying to drive collaboration between other regions. In addition to that, we are also part of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And so, we are working through our cooperative effort within Northeast states to cap and reduce CO2 from power plants. And these efforts have really proven to be successful. They enable us to take the savings essentially from that program and put them back into activities that we fund at Nyserda. And so that's another collaboration where, we're talking and thinking about how do we foster an environment and economy that's really friendly to growth within this sector, while also, naming the fact that, carbon pollution is truly a negative externality, and really harnessing that reality in order to do more together.
Great. So we have a question from Marshall Mermel. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but he's recommending that we in the U.S. connect with Sean Kidney of the Climate Bond Initiative. Are you familiar with the Climate Bond Initiative, and is Nyserda doing any work with the Climate Bond Initiative?
No, I'm not. And thank you, Marshall, for the recommendation. We are, our associates at the Green Bank within Nyserda are actively talking and thinking about bonds and other financial interventions. So we'll be sure to pass along that recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. And here's another one. This one's from Tom Bloom. Does New York State have a plan to achieve the carbon reduction targets and I'm just going to read this, CL-CPA in the timeframes indicated? I'm not sure what that stands for. Do you know, Kate?
Yeah, so CLCPA is the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act I referenced earlier. My recommendation to Tom is, as I said, we're still working towards a final plan that will come out in 2023 with our Climate Action Council. And that's going to be like the most detailed public roadmap available, probably of any state at that point, that really spells out the path to economy-wide carbon neutrality. In the meantime, I will put in the channel a link to our strategic outlook. This is a great resource for anyone interested in what Nyserda is doing. It's a look at between 2020 and 2023, exactly what our pathway to these goals is going to look like and what steps we're going to take. So the short answer is yes, we're driving towards a more in-depth plan and working towards that based on the policy as outlined.
Okay. And another question's come in, Katie. This one says that Cornell University, through Professor Lehman, is a leader in carbon remediation using biochar, or I'm not, again, maybe you know what that is. Maybe it's an abbreviation. At any rate, is Nyserda working with Cornell?
So, we have, as you can imagine, Paul, we have like hundreds of partners and contracts and agreements. And so, I know for a fact that we work with Cornell, for instance, on the 76 West competition, you guys may be aware of. In terms of our work on biochar, no, I don't think we have, I don't believe that we have any existing contracts or partnerships there at the moment. But once again, we are, as I said, really looking at natural carbon solutions as a pathway to sequestration. And so, I expect that we'll be able to share more on our logic around that space and maybe potential opportunities soon.
Okay. All right. Well, Katie, thank you so much for your time today and for all of that good information about what Nyserda is up to. And we're going to move on to our second speaker now. And thanks very much, Katie.
Thanks, Paul.